Today's episode, you guys, is brought to you by Perfect Storm Real Estate Specific Software. It's the website I use in my business. I'm actually a partial owner within the company that's been able to give my input to help create a piece of software that is uber effective at lead generation in our real estate businesses. That website, www.perfectstormnow.com. Go check that out. It's amazing, epic front-end lead generation site that's extremely affordable for real estate agents out there. Also, today's episode is brought to you by our 90-day mastery bootcamp. If you're in the real estate industry, if you're wanting to take your business to the next level, this is a gnarly, crazy experience. We go through for 90 days straight. There's there is 13 total sessions that we go through. Each weekly session is about 2 to 3 hours long every single week. Plus, you have daily access to me going through the experience through the group. So to check out more about that program, we roll those out about every 90 days. We stagger them once in a while, but we do about 3 or 4 of those every single year. So if you want to spend the next 90 days with me, about 40 hours of just crazy epic content helping your business take it to the next level, go to www.90daymastery.com. That's our sales page. You can see testimonials, learn more about the product, and register and sign up right there. If you are signing up, make sure to use the promo code LiveMastery, all caps, all together, all one word, LiveMastery. It saves you $500. It makes that whole entire 90-day coaching experience only $997 for you guys. So, all right, let's jump on in. What is up, my peeps? Joshua Smith here with another GSD interview, where every single week we interview top entrepreneurs, top real estate agents, and just straight up top people that are out there dominating their space and doing big things on this planet. So today we've got a guest on the show I'm really excited to have on the show, fellow real estate agent, fellow podcaster, coach. So really excited, you guys, to have Marguerite Crespillo on the show. Welcome to the show, Marguerite.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, no, this is awesome. I know you've got a lot going on. You and I spoke. I was actually on your show last week, and now we're kind of trading places. We're very similar paths. Real estate business to podcasting to coaching. So really excited to have you on. And I know you've done a lot of amazing things in your career. But before we kind of talk about everything that you're doing today, let's rewind the clocks. I go back to, I don't care, high school, college. When did your entrepreneur journey start, and what led you to where you are today?
Well, it's funny. If I go way back, my brothers and my mom would tell you that I was about 10 or 11 years old when I first became an entrepreneur, because I grew up in the small town of Chico, party capital college up there. And there was a lot of walnut trees, and diamond walnuts and diamond almonds had a big factory there. And so you could get 50-pound gunny sack bags, and you could fill them up with walnuts and take them down to the factory, and they would pay you $5 for every 50-pound bag, right? So I pretty quickly figured out that collecting the walnuts was not near as much fun as collecting the money. So I figured out how to get my friends and my little brothers to fill the bags, and I would pay them $2.50, and then I would go turn the bags in and get the $5. So I would have to say I was pretty young when I started out as an entrepreneur. I had no idea where that was going to go, obviously, at 11 years old. But and looking back, I didn't really think that was, entrepreneurial. But clearly I had it in me at a young age, I suppose.
Yeah, so you started at a young age. You're doing that. I love that story. Did you as you got a little bit older and kind of more domesticated through society? We always get pushed this path of stability and get that comfortable job. And did you go that path at all? Did you kind of lose maybe that entrepreneur side of you, and did you go into corporate America, or did you straight out of school just run for it?
No, I would say for sure I went that path. I make the joke that I probably got fired for more jobs than I was hired from, because I just didn't fit that mold, right? So, I remember my first paid job. I was out driving a hay baler in the summertime because, the farmers all like to have cute young girls driving tractors, but I didn't know that's why at the time. So I did that. I worked at Burger King. I worked in a lumber mill for a while. I ended up let's see where else. I did a million jobs. I can't even tell you until I decided to get into real estate. And then when I was around 22, 23, I became a cocktail waitress at Black Angus, which, by the way, is the best sales training, I think, on the planet. Anyone who can be a waiter, waitress, something, you get extraordinary sales training. And so I did that for a while, and then that kind of launched the entrepreneurial stuff because I ended up working with a gal named Marlena. She's a loan officer now, and we created a catering business for bars. So if you were getting married, for example, we would come in and cater the bar for you. So we started doing that, and then ended up buying a bar, and that didn't work out because that sounds way more fun than it actually is. And then when I was around 30 years old is when I decided we had a young son who was about 5 years old, and I didn't want to work in bars all night long, and I didn't want to go work an 8 to 5 job. And my husband, who was in the mortgage business, said, well, why don't you get your real estate license and do refis? And I said, oh, okay, that sounds fine, because it was refi mania at the time. And this was 1993, and interest rates had dropped to an all-time low of 8%. So it was a crazy market. And so I decided to get my real estate license and do loans. And I did loans for about a year, but I pretty quickly figured out that loans was not for me. I didn't like the loan side of it. So I ended up going to work for the guy who sold us our house, and as his assistant. And I had my little son, Jacob. I had my 5-year-old. My son, Jacob, had just been born in February of 95. So 95, I was toting around with a brand new baby and working as an assistant for him. And like most top producers, he was scattered and all over the place, and his phone was ringing off the hook, and he wasn't returning calls and didn't have a database. So I started helping him set up his database. Top Producer had just come out. We literally just had gotten the MLS. I'm dating myself now. We had literally just gotten the MLS, because prior to that we had MLS books, right? So the big old books. I know you don't remember that because you're too young, but we had the old MLS books. And so computers were just kind of a new thing. And so I was his assistant. I started answering his phone. The phones would ring, and I'd say, hey, they want to go see a house. He'd go, well, go show them a house. I'd be like, okay. So I'd rush out to show him a house. I'd call him. I'd say, hey, they want to write an offer. He goes, well, write an offer. I was like, okay. And I ended up selling 18 houses in my first 6 months. And I said, I think this is for me. So that kind of launched my real estate career, so to speak. And shortly thereafter, I thought I knew it all, because I got really cocky, like most people do when they're successful out of the gate. Decided to open my own real estate company. So January of 1996, we opened Realty First. And I had several people that I'd gotten to know, and they're like, we want to work for you. So next thing you know, we started building a brokerage, and I was selling real estate, and I had another son. And so I had 3 children under the age of 6, and trying to sell real estate, run a company. And I think I lost my mind in there somewhere.
Yeah. No, you get to a point where you're wearing so many hats, it's hard to keep it all together. So after you sold that 18 deals in your first 6 months working as an assistant for that top producer in your office, when you decide, okay, this is the business for me, and got in the sales aspect, did you remain on his team, or did you branch off on your own at that point?
So that's when I was only on his team for really literally about 10 months. And then, like I said, I got really confident and thought, I don't need him. I could go do this on my own. So literally I started working for him in February of 95. January of 96, I opened my own company.
Oh, okay. So it's that quick. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
not the smartest thing to do. I wouldn't necessarily recommend that, but I'm an entrepreneur by spirit. So.
Well, and the cool thing is I always say that I hate the word failure, because that's what we learn the most from. Those what seem to be the biggest failures, the biggest painful moments, really become our greatest learning experience and our greatest assets, and define us to become those successful future entrepreneurs. What were some of those? Because this industry, we have 90% of realtors that fail in the first 3 years. Right? Like, what were some of those growing pains, those learning experiences that you went through that, almost broke you?
I would say a lot of it had to do with really confidence levels in a lot of ways, and I think that, I will say the biggest mistake I see people make is comparing themselves to others. So everyone has their own version of success, right? I think we talked a little bit about this when you were a guest on my show. Everyone has their own version of success, and we're all kind of plugging along thinking we're doing a great job, and then we see somebody's production board and we're like, well, how did they do that many homes? And I only did this. And so we start to get kind of caught up and get in our own. And so we go moving into all these different areas. And I would say that the biggest mistake that I made was trying to be everything to everybody. I think the greatest lesson that I have learned over the years is that I can't be everything to everybody, and I don't need to be. Like, there's no need to be this person or that person, or trying to be a little bit. Like, there's a great saying that I think Evan Piggin said this. It says, get rich in your niche. Like, figure out where you are good and strong. And as agents, we're like the squirrel, right? We're like, let's look for this deal and we can find that nut, and we're going to run over here and hold on, let me try this, and all these different things. And I would just venture to say that that was probably my biggest mistake, trying to be a little bit of everything to everybody and getting all scattered and confused and overwhelmed. And then your confidence struggles from that area and you kind of spiral. Like, I see a lot of agents make a huge mistake where they just get paralyzed. It's like they're trying to do so many things that they get overwhelmed, and so they just stop and they do nothing. Yep. And next thing you know, they're struggling to get here, and they get behind the 8 ball because they're trying to catch up all the time. I just think that that's the biggest struggle.
Yep. No, paralysis through analysis. We see it all the time. So, okay. So then, did you keep the real estate brokerage, or did you just at some point say, "Hey, I don't want to wear all these hats. I'm going to go back to just being an agent, focusing on my own business with another franchise or in the brokerage"? What did that look like?
Well, so let me fast forward several years because I've been at this a while. So up until 2005, the majority of my business was all referred. I'm strong on my database. I always have been. I've always had a really strong database, always worked it, did a lot of social events, client events. Like, it kind of goes back to trying to be what everyone else is. Like, I have never knocked a door in my whole life. I'm just not a door knocker. It's not that it's right or wrong. It's just not me. I don't door knock. So I had to figure out, how do I get these people to come to me? So I am a social creature by nature, and I love to have parties. So we would have parties all the time. We would have Christmas parties and summer carnivals and, cocktail parties and dinner parties and things like that. And that's really how I built my business. And so all of my business up until 2005 mostly came from those types of avenues and referrals. In 2005, obviously, the market went to hell in a handbasket, right? Crashed big time. And the reality is that all the people that I'd helped all those years were struggling, and it became difficult. So I had a friend call me one day and she says, "Hey, have you thought about getting on Wells Fargo's REO list?" I'm like, "What? What's that?" So next thing you know, I got on the REO list, and in 2005, I moved the majority of my business into the REO world. So 2005 came along. REOs went crazy. I totally followed that path. The big mistake I did make during that time, I will say, is that I did not stay in contact with my database. I just kind of went into that paralysis place. I figured everyone's struggling. I'm struggling. I got nothing good to say. So what can I do? And so I backed off of my database a little bit and went full force into REO. So for the next 5 years, that was the majority of my focus, really building. I ended up getting on with Fannie Mae and HUD, doing 200 and 300 units a year. Insanity at its finest, and really made a ton of huge mistakes in that arena too. In 2009, we decided that, hey, we should continue to build the brokerage while I'm doing the REO. So when the REO goes away, I have something to fall back on. So we ended up becoming part of a franchise. And that was, in my opinion, in hindsight, kind of a big mistake. I mean, franchises work for some, but for me, it wasn't the best path to take. We ended up building the brokerage to about 110 agents, 120 agents. And in January of last year, just decided that that wasn't for me. My husband was diagnosed with Parkinson's disease, and he was our broker of record. And the stress of running a brokerage with 100 plus agents, it's like herding cats, and next thing you know, they're leaving you for 5% more down the street, and they weren't producing anyway. So it's like 5% more of zero is zero, and it just became too stressful. It just wasn't for me. So in January of this year, we decided to get out of the franchise, went back to being a small independent broker, running my personal production team because I'd gotten back into my database and taking care of my database, and moved forward with my personal team. And for the last 5 years, I've been working on building all the content to create online training and coaching business. So that is launching in a couple weeks. Real Estate Academy, and I'll give you a link for that. You guys can check it out. But so I really ran the gamut, right? So I started out doing loans, went into being an assistant. Was a big producer for many, many years. I've been fortunate to have helped over 3,000 families in my career. And I've done 100 plus deals a year for the majority of my career. So I've done it in all avenues, right? So you see the people who did it all REO. I did that in REO. I did it in referral. I did it, in all the different ways. And when you talk about failure, I'm not sure that failure is the right word, like you said. I think that it's more learning how to adapt and change. The market has changed dramatically in the 20 years that I've been in it. We saw the worst crash in history. And the truth is that great agents will do well in any market. You just really have to learn to shift, and you have to learn to adjust and adapt. And for me, I had family to feed, so I had to go figure it out, right? My good friend Marie Forleo says it best. She says, everything is figure-outable.
Yep.
It's just a matter of what you do to go figure it out.
So I see so many agents struggle with the transition, right? Going from, because it's like 2/3 of the time when a buyer's market, then you have these extreme markets, and it seems as we become more of this world economy, and there's just so many different things, moving parts, that these markets are turning more on a dime more frequently. What are some things that you do or pay attention to so then you can be ahead of the curve? Because it isn't the strongest that survive. It is those that adapt to change the quickest. So, what are you focusing on in your market to be like, okay, hey, this is going good with traditional referrals, but now it's time for me to start focusing on short sales and REO again, and kind of vice versa. What are some things that you're looking out for there?
Well, I think, and again, I think we talked a little bit about this on the podcast with you, is that it comes down to knowing your numbers. Like, numbers do not lie. They don't lie to you. Like, you can fluff all day long about, your presentation or how wonderful or great you are, but numbers don't lie. They tell you the truth. So when you start to watch the statistics in your market, I'll tell you the best lesson that I learned in REO was understanding statistics. When you start watching the stats in your market and you can see the new listings coming on, like I know that in our market in around October of this year, homes started sitting a little bit longer on the market. Days on market started to edge up. We started to see a few more price reductions. You see less inventory coming on the market. So you can see those shifts and changes. And I think what happened really truthfully in around 2004 and 5 is that everybody and their mother was in real estate, right? And it was easy. Nobody really had to work for it. All you had to do was put a sign out and answer the phone. I mean, nobody had to learn the basic sales skills of what it takes every day to get out there and hustle. It kind of bred this whole generation of order takers. And so then when the market shifted and things changed, they didn't know what to do. They're like, well, my phone's not ringing. Now what do I do? Like, well, you go figure out how to make the phone ring, right? And for many, that was just a quick, easy way to just give up and go do something else. And the sad, sad truth about the real estate industry as a whole is that the average agent sells 3 to 4 homes a year. And mostly, you said they make it 3 years. That's because they've gotten in, they've pissed off all their family and friends, and they've gotten out, right? So they never learned the basic skills of what you have to do every single day. And that's where if you're really tracking your numbers, it just doesn't lie. If you're making the calls, you're doing the work, you're getting out there and networking and meeting people, and you're paying attention to the statistics, which we are a blessed industry and that we can look at those stats every day. Like, it's all right in front of you. There's no secrets or lies. So if you're paying attention to that, which is exactly what happened to me in hindsight, and I did not know this at the time, and I know there's all these people who said, oh, I knew the market was going to crash, which I think is bullshit personally. I was August 2005. I put a house on the market, and 2 weeks later, I didn't have any offers. And I was like, I think the winds have changed, right? I didn't know what was going on at the time, but I knew something was happening. My inner guidance system said, something has changed. And I started thinking, I better start paying attention to this and watching closer. So jumped in, learned statistics, learned how to pay attention to that, learned what my numbers were, and started to really pay attention. If you are paying attention to that, there's no way you can't figure it out. In my opinion, there's no way. I mean, if you look at that, you will see quickly that something has to happen, something has to change. Same thing in REO. In 2012, I had my biggest year in REO. Did 30 million or something, 250 units, sold a ton of REO. But I sat down and I did my numbers at the end of the year. And I said, gosh, I haven't seen as many listings rolling in the last couple months. And then I looked at my average sales price and my average commission, which at that time was like $2,800, right? And I said, is this make any sense? It didn't make any sense to me. I was on this like rat wheel, right? I was running. My expenses were out of control because of all the stuff that REO required. My average sales price was ridiculous, my average commission. So I said, I'm not doing this anymore. I need to redirect my business and shift. And so at that point, I said, okay, let's look and see what we can do. The next year, dropped our production down to 120 units intentionally, let go of some areas that weren't great areas, figured out how to raise my average sales price so I could make more money in less time. I did the same thing back in 2002 when I was doing all referral business. That year I did 120 units, almost hit $1 million, and realized that I got a voicemail one day from my 5-year-old son who said, Mom, you're supposed to be home. You promised to take me to the movies. Mom, how come you're not here? Heartbreaking video. And I said, I can't do that anymore. I can't do it. And so the following year I had to shift. I had to figure out how to do less hours, more business. So it's all possible when you're paying attention. But if you're not paying attention to those numbers, you will be out of business in no time.
So when it comes down to, because really it's working smarter, not always harder, right? When you're focusing on those things, because it's really then just making sure you get laser focused on the right money making activities and cutting out the waste. What do you, in your opinion, or at least in your business, feel that those most important activities are that you really focus on and delegate everything else?
So a good friend of mine has a company called Fusion, and his tagline is make friends, serve people.
Yep.
And if you are constantly going out there and utilizing your ability to build and develop relationships, you'll always have more than enough business if you're paying attention to it. So building more business, building relationships, getting to know people. I mean, truthfully, for me, there are people that I've spent the last few years getting to know, and those people are just now, is it making sense financially for what we're doing, right? So reaching out to people and getting to know them. But for right now, if you are not spending a certain amount of time every day reaching out to develop and deepen relationships to get business, then you're going to be out of business in no time. Whatever that is. If your business is primarily built on REO like mine was, where you're developing those business relationships. If your business is primarily built on your database, if your business is built on door knocking, whatever that is. But the number one key in real estate is consistency. And it's the number one thing that I think agents struggle with.
Yep.
It's just doing something consistently every day.
Yep, couldn't agree more. So, so today, I mean, with your business today, are you back to where it's mainly referral based, or is it kind of a mixture? What's maybe your top 3 different business sources today?
So the majority of my business right now comes from either a past client or a past client who's been referred. And ironically, I'm starting to receive a lot of business from realtor referrals that are out of the area. So I think that that's kind of an untapped market a lot of people don't pay attention to. But my last 3 transactions have come from agents that are out of the area who've referred someone to me. So the majority of mine is all relationship-based, referral-based businesses coming in. I still have a few little REOs that are trickling out that are left, but I haven't really focused my energy in that direction. So on my team, as far as what my team does get we have some Zillow ads running, Realtor.com ads running. They're doing a ton of open houses and reaching out, doing calling expireds and for sale by owners. But I personally don't do that anymore. This year will only close, in December, I just did my numbers. I closed 37 transactions for about 13 million. And I'm fine with that. Like, that's a great amount of money for me for that division of what I'm doing, because there's so many other things that I want to do. So I've had the days where I did 20, 30, $40 million. And it's great to be able to do that if you can automate it, which I have a big part of my business automated to do that. But that's not my primary drive and focus anymore.
So to keep all this together, right, because you got a massive database, to keep everything together like you're doing, you got to have some pretty dialed-in systems, right? What are some of the systems that you use to help you keep all this stuff together?
So I'll tell you that I mail to my database every single month and have for 20 plus years. And it's snail mail, good old letter of the heart, little story about me and my life and what's going on with me. And I still continue to do that to this day. That goes to my database every single month. I don't do it quarterly. I don't do it semi-annually. I don't do anything like that. It goes every single month, a little story. I've written twice about real estate, once when the market was going crazy and once when it crashed. But otherwise, the people that it goes to are people that know me, like me, and trust me. So most people aren't really interested in hearing about real estate until the time comes for them to buy or sell. But I will tell you the value of that comes from a gal named Linda Buckmaster, who in 1997, I sold Linda a $50,000 HUD home back in the day when HUD homes were super prevalent. My commission, I think, was like $1,500. I don't know, something crazy. Linda has referred 8 people. Her referral tree is 8 levels deep. 65 referrals and transactions in it, has generated over $300,000 in commissions, and Linda has bought and sold 6 homes through me.
Wow.
So that is what I build my business on, is taking great care of business. And, it was interesting because I don't know, do you know who Dean Jackson is?
Mm-mm.
So Dean Jackson is part of a podcast called ilovemarketing.com. It's pretty cool.
Okay, yeah, Joe Polish.
Reach out. Yeah, with Joe Polish.
Yep.
So Dean sent out a thing the other day that I thought was really fascinating. This will be kind of a first time I've mentioned it on your podcast. So is he talks about taking every listing, take your last 10 listings that you got and give them points. And you take a listing, for example, and if you sold the listing, you get a point. If you got a buyer for the listing, you get another point. If you got a buyer who bought another property but came from that listing, you get another point. If you get a referral from that listing or that seller, you get another point. So you have the potential on those 10 listings to get 5 points for each and 50 points. Well, the sad truth is that most agents, and I am guilty of this, so I can speak to it, is that for the majority of the time, all I did was sell that listing. So I got 1 point. So out of a potential of 50 points, I got 10 points. So what it makes you start doing is thinking about, do I really need to sell 500 homes? Or could I sell 50 homes and get a buyer on it? What could I do to improve the business that I have right now? Because so many agents are focused on, they need more leads. More leads is not the problem. The leads is converting the leads that you have, taking great care of the clients that you have so that you generate referrals from those people, and maximizing the business that you do get, which is all about working smarter, not harder, right?
Yeah, the NAR stat, and it may have changed recently, but the last time I heard it was 88% of buyers and sellers said they loved their agent, would use their agent again, but only 11% ever did repeat transaction because they forget their agent's name. Why do you think that so many agents drop the ball there? I mean, is it just because it's not talked about, they're not trained properly? Why do you think they're just chasing new business and they just totally neglect really that gold? It's their money tree in the backyard and they're choosing not to water it.
It's crazy. And, I don't completely understand it, except that I think, so let me back up a little bit. I think that the majority of real estate agents get into the business because they think they don't have to work, right? They're in some sort of 8 to 5 job at the state that they hate, that they're miserable at. And their agent sells them a house and they're like, well, that wasn't hard. I could do that in my sleep. And she made $10,000. So they think, well, I could go sell a few houses a year and not have to work that hard, not have a schedule, work when I want to work, and they all drive Mercedes. And obviously we know that that's not the truth. So most agents, it's the one industry where agents really get into it because they don't want to work that hard. They think that they don't have to work that hard. And so in sending out a letter, there's a cost associated, which is minimal. Maybe they didn't know how to handle the transaction, so they're embarrassed to follow up with that client because there might have been some challenges at the end, which happens. And they just don't have any consistency in them. They want to kind of work when, willy-nilly, work when I want to work and not have consistency. And the truth is, if I go back to Linda Buckmaster and I say, what did it cost me to mail to her every month for, 17 years? Well, $1 a month times, 12 months times 17 years, $120? I'm horrible at math. So
to make $300,000.
There you go. So the fact is that it didn't cost you more than a couple $100 to stay in contact with them. But people are like, well, I don't know what to send to them. And I don't know truthfully, it does not matter what the heck you send. I have changed it a million times over the years. I remember doing recipe cards back in the day, and I went all the way extreme to 12-page newsletters and back to the letter of the heart. It doesn't matter. The truth is, you want your name in front of them every single month. I don't know why agents don't do it. I preach about it all the time. I talk about it nonstop. And for many, when I say, why don't you do it? Well, because I don't know what to say. I don't know what to send. That's the biggest issue. And the truth is, it doesn't matter what the heck you send. Just send something.
So how did the podcast and then into now with your coaching program, what inspired you to kind of start these new ventures?
Well, a couple things. When we had the brokerage, I was getting agents asking me all the time, when your name starts to bubble up to the top and people start to see your production, they want to know how did you do it? And I was getting asked this all the time. And so I created what I called Tuesday tune-ups, where every Tuesday from 12 to 1, I would do trainings and I would teach people what to do and how to do it. And I would always open it up to anybody with any company. I didn't care where they came from. So then I started getting people from out of the area say, well, how can we hear this information? So I turned it into like an online subscription product. And the truth is, I've been doing this so long, I just feel compelled to really give back. It's a great industry. It has given me a life way bigger than I ever imagined in my wildest dreams from that little girl who was collecting walnuts. I never imagined that my life would go where it is. And I love real estate. Like, what other career is there that rates right up there with movie stars and athletes, where you can make a ridiculous amount of money with I didn't go to college. I mean, I have a PhD, a public high school diploma, right? I didn't go to college. And the truth is that I probably make more money than many people who did go to college. And it was just a great opportunity to be able to help people and help them accomplish the ultimate dream, which is still home ownership. Like, no matter how bad the market got, people still want to own their little piece of land somewhere. They still want to own a home. And the opportunity to be able to help those people is beyond my wildest dreams. And I want to be able to give back to the industry. I think that the industry as a whole is lacking a lot in education. And there's tons and tons of education out there, but I think so much of it is pounding, how to go out and sell a bazillion homes. And I get that there's a place for that. And there are people that are amazing at it. Like, I know you have an amazing team and group, but for the majority of agents, they just want to feed their family. They just want to sell, 20, 30, 40 houses a year is still a ridiculous amount of income in most areas, so what is available for people to go out and learn that? And I've done it. I've been on the streets. I've sold a lot of homes. I've done it in every kind of market. So I feel like I have a lot to offer and be able to help people in their own arena. And there's so much business available for everybody. Like, there's no lack anywhere, right? Yep. There's more than enough. I don't need 1 million people. I just need a group of people that, are interested in hearing my message and what I have to say. So I'm excited about the Masterclass Real Estate Academy. I think it's a great avenue and a venue for people who are trying to make changes in their business and, doing things. Maybe some of it's old school, some of it is new school, having a great opportunity to talk to amazing people like you. And I just think there's a ton of room for all of us to be able to raise the bar in our industry, so to speak, and really get great people out there who know what they're doing or following their own vision and their own version of success.
So with your Real Estate Academy that's getting ready to launch here in a couple of weeks, so by the time this podcast is probably, by the time our listeners are probably listening to this, it's probably launched, right? Because we're about 2 weeks out from release. So, give us an idea of what does that entail? What could people expect? A lot of people are looking. A lot of our listeners are looking for coaching and training to take their career to the next level. Where do they learn more about the program? Can you just give us a little more detail on that?
Yeah, so what my vision is to teach people really how to build a lifetime business, right? Like, what does that look like to be able to still be here 20 years later and still be able to get referrals? There's tons of great programs out there that teach you how to get leads. They're a dime a dozen, truthfully. You can go and Google it right now. You can pop on and find tons of places that will teach you how to get leads. But what not a lot are teaching you is really how to take care of that lead and nurture that lead year after year after year. And what does that look like 20 years down the road? I know for me that I can go to my database and pop out a mail out today or have a party and get as much business as I want to get. That to me is where many ultimately want to be. They all need great programs like yours and many of the others that teach them how to go out and get the right now business. There's huge value in that, because there are a lot of people who struggle with that, even after years of being in the business. I mean, I know people who are 20, 30 years in the business and they're going out having to rebuild their business right now, right? But, this academy is designed to teach people what do they need to do year in, day out, month in, month out, year in, year out, to build that lifetime business, from how to create a one-page business plan instead of a 472-page business plan that you're not likely to ever open again because it was so damn traumatic to just fill it out, to a one-page business plan, to success trackers that say, here's what you need to do every single day, to, ideas and concepts on client events, how to get your parties paid for by other people, how to reach out to your database, how to have those conversations and communication with them. So there's tons of great information in there. I'm really excited about it. Stuff I've spent 20 years developing, testing, failing, screwing up at, all that good stuff, that will be hopefully helpful to people out there that are looking to really build a longer term business.
So where do we go? What's your website? Where do we go to actually check more out, or if we want to buy the program or get in touch with you about it? What's the best way to go learn more about it? What's the best way to reach out to you?
Yeah, so they can go to masterclassrealestateacademy.com would be a great place to go. They can also check me out at margueritecrespillo.com. I know I have a tough name to spell, so I'll let you put the link in the podcast. But margueritecrespillo.com. I'm doing podcasts again with people like you, but Masterclass Real Estate Academy after January 21st will be available. And we will give you a link that you can post as well. So I'm really excited about it. I'm excited to be able to talk to people like you and potentially look at some stuff that we could put together down the road and a number of other things.
Absolutely. So, okay, so a few last questions for you.
Yeah.
What I find with so many people is good becomes the worst enemy to greatness, right? Like it's so easy to get sucked into this good enough, get comfortable, we get complacent. What are some of the things that you do to make sure that you're not getting comfortable, that you're always striving for growth and to improve?
Well, I think a big part of it is really, again, going back to knowing your numbers. I love the little saying called beat your best, right? So what was your best and what can you do to beat it? And I will tell you that I think the most valuable thing that I've done is I have reached out to people like you. I have participated in other people's programs. I've spent thousands and thousands of dollars in coaching and mentoring and training and learning, not only within the real estate industry, but outside the real estate industry, which is where I think you get the really good stuff, right? Is spending that time getting around great people. I'm inspired when I get around someone like you that's done the kind of stuff that you've done. I'm inspired when I get around other people who've done either bigger numbers or done it in shorter periods of time, or figured out what are some different ways that I could do business. For me, that's what I love. I get excited and inspired by that. And of course, it's the time of year where people want to have a vision. What does that look like? And my vision of success and version of success has changed so much in, 20 plus years. I mean, when my kids were little, it was all about how to, I wanted to do $1 million and I wanted to do 100 homes. And, now I'm like, I'm happy to do 36 homes but in higher price points so I can make more money in less time. How can I go out and help others? I just think that your version of success changes as your life changes. And now that my kids are all grown, I'm an empty nester. I sat around with my husband yesterday. I said, well, we better start figuring out what the heck we're going to do with our time, because my life, like I was laughing with you last week, and you got 3 little ones, right?
Yep.
Yeah. And I totally remember like that time in my life and just being so insane and crazy and trying to figure out all this different stuff. Well, now I'm like sitting around, what the heck do I do with myself? So now I'm inspired to see, hey, what are other people doing in this next chapter of their life? What can I do to help others and give back and create a brand new version of success for myself? So I think just talking and hanging out with great people is the best thing that you can do. The more opportunity you can get to go learn from someone and be inspired by somebody and see what they're doing. Like just doing my first Skype video interview is pretty cool to me. Right? Like I haven't done that. I'm like, well, that's cool. How do I do that? And I did a blab and I learning about Periscope. Like I'm learning all kinds of crazy stuff.
Yep. No, I
so
love it.
I think that's how you improve yourself every day is you get around better people than you. Like I heard a great saying that said, if you're the biggest fish in the pond, you're in the wrong pond. Like go find a bigger pond. And I think that you can constantly be doing that in whatever version of success you want and whatever avenue you want to follow. You can constantly be getting better and better at what you do and becoming a better human being.
Yep, love it, love it. So, okay, let's say something happens and you get financially wiped out. So you're starting from scratch again. You've got little to no money. That's like $300 left in your bank account. But you retain all this knowledge, all this information that you've learned over your 20 plus year career. What are some of the immediate things that you would start doing right away to go out there and rebuild this amazing business that you built?
Well, I can tell you I've been there. So I can tell you that, in 2008, when REO was crazy and the market was insane, we got down to where literally 30 days from losing our home, and trying to figure out finances. We'd gone through all of our savings. We'd wiped it all out. It was rough. I had a husband who was in the mortgage business. I was in real estate business. I mean, it was rough. And I'll tell you that it went back to what I said earlier in going out there and just finding and building relationships. I did open houses till my eyes bled. I did whatever I could do to get out there and meet people. I got involved. I had never been in a networking group. So I ended up joining BNI and got into a business networking group. And I'll tell you the best thing about BNI was because I had gotten into such a depressed mode where I just wasn't leaving my house. I was literally sitting at the computer all day and, in my pajamas, is BNI forced me to get up and get dressed. And so I had to get up every week and I had to get dressed and I had to show up at this meeting because I'd made a commitment and I had to put on my best happy face and my professional suit and I had to show up like a pro. And so I would say all day long, go out. If you're dead ass broke and you're struggling and you're trying to figure it out, get up, get dressed and show up. Yep. Just get up. And if you get your clothes on and you're dressed in a suit and tie and, whatever your version of professionalism is and you're dressed, you're going to meet people. You can get up and get dressed and go walk the mall if you have to. You can get up, get dressed, go do open houses, get up, get dressed, go to classes, go learn from people, get out there. There's so much you can do for free. So much you can do for free. You don't need to spend thousands of dollars on lead generation and advertising. Preferably, I think that the entire industry should be forced to go out and build relationships, and we would have a better industry in a lot of ways. But they're so quick to rush out and run an ad. They're so quick to rush out and spend, $1,000 on advertising because they don't want to pick up the phone and make the calls. Pick up the phone, make the calls, do open houses, network your butt off, get out there and get to know people in your community, get involved in a charity, do anything that you can where people are present and get up, get dressed and show up.
Yep, couldn't agree more. So the question, I have a lot of, not just coaching clients, but a lot of people that listen to the podcast, because the vast majority of realtors are women that are in the business. And, it's sometimes it's a difficult question for me to answer, because it's I'm a guy, not a mom, right? Plus, my wife stays at home full time with the kids, so I don't have that guilt of not being at home. I can come to the office and crank 18 hours because I feel like I'm fulfilling my fatherly and husband duties. But a question I get all the time from a lot of young moms that are in this business, they have this like internal war of, okay, I know I've got to focus on this business and create these opportunities, but I feel so guilty for not being involved with my kids' lives. I mean, how do you, is there such a thing as a balance? I mean, how have you been able to do it successfully where you didn't totally neglect that relationship and now all of a sudden 19 years later you don't even know your son? You've obviously done a great job with that. So, do you have any advice there?
Well, I'll tell you that I'm going to use your word for a moment. I'm going to say balance is bullshit. Like there is no balance, right? I think that like I said earlier, my version of success has changed so much over the years. I also think that balance changes. I teach a great class called Goals versus Priorities, and I'll shoot you a link for that class that you can offer. And I talk a lot about the fact that your life kind of goes through these cycles, right? And there's times like right now when you have young kids at home and, I'll tell you there is a big difference for men and women. For most, and not all, for most men that have young children, they have a wife at home. So that wife takes care of all the kids, all the life. Like you never come home and wonder where the toilet paper is. Like it just magically appears. It's one of those things that men, for the most part, not all, because there's men who are in the reverse situation, they don't have to think about. They have a wife at home. Well, for most women, when we work, we are not only working, but we are also that wife. We are also that mom. We are also that person trying to be that successful, version of yourself. So again, number one, you got to step out of comparing yourself, because comparing yourself is cancerous. Everyone has their own version of success. When my kids were little, I worked before they got up and I worked after they went to sleep many times. And I would work things out where I could meet with clients when my husband was home, or when my husband was traveling and working a lot, I would share with another mom where she would take my kids for a couple hours and I would take her kids for a couple hours, and we just adjusted our schedule. Do you get over the guilt? No, I don't think that you ever do. My kids are now grown, but sometimes I go back and I say, oh, now my kids could care less about hanging out with me. So now I think, gosh, I should have hung out with them more when they wanted to be around me, right? But I think that every kid goes through that no matter what. And so I think really figuring out what's most important to you. I know I did a podcast with a gal named Amanda Todd, and she's a single mom with 3 kids. She did $20 million in her first 18 months. She'd be a great person for you to have on your podcast. And she said that she had a couple of non-negotiables, and her one non-negotiable is that she picks her kids up every day from school. That's her non-negotiable. So every day she gets that opportunity to pick her kids up. She shuts off her phone for an hour while she gets her kids, hangs out with them. And she works that into her schedule during the day. So she gets up in the morning, gets her kids off to school, and she's at the office by 8:30, where most agents are not even getting up yet. She's at the office by 8:30 and she works until 3 o'clock. And then she shuts off. She goes and picks her kids up, and she spends time with her kids. So there's lots of ways to figure out what is most important to you. Like I said, for me, I would just get up at 5 o'clock in the morning and I would work for a couple hours before my kids got up, doing a lot of the stuff I could do. And then, I would go to work when my kids were at school. And then when my kids were home, I'd wait until they went to sleep and I would work. So let go of the guilt. Your kids are going to be fine, especially if they're really young. They won't remember. So that's a good time to get it done. But the truth is that they'll adjust. And I think that the most valuable thing that you can do as a mom is to be present when you're present with your kids. So I think the biggest mistake I think that I see a lot of moms make is, they're with their kids, but they're on their phone the whole time. They're texting, they're making calls, they're doing this. Create some time where you can disconnect and shut off and really hang out with your kids and be fun. But the great thing about this business is I could literally go to the park with my kids. I could hang out, they could be playing, I can have my little, now things are amazing with iPad and iPhone. Like, what the heck? When I first started in real estate, we didn't have cell phones, we didn't even have fax machines, back in the dark ages. So it's so much easier now and you have so much more flexibility, but let go of what you think you have to be and make it work for where you are at right now.
Yep. No, I love it. So it's a question that you asked me on your podcast. So I'm going to, because I know that you're a self-development junkie as I am. What are your, I know it's tough to really always classify your top reads, but what are some of the top reads, recommendations that you have that have really impacted your business?
So I'll tell you from a life perspective and then real estate. My all-time favorite book is called The 4 Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz, my all-time favorite. And my favorite part of that book is the one agreement that says, don't take it personal, which is the hardest one of all to listen to. And especially for many women, because we take everything personal. Don't take it personal. I would say the best real estate book that I read my first month in real estate was called The E-Myth, The Entrepreneurial Myth by Michael Gerber. Without a doubt, the best business book ever, because if you're in this business as a business, you need to look at it and run it like a business, which is a huge mistake agents make. The E-Myth, I think that Mar's great book, 7 Levels of Communication, is fantastic. Bob Berg, The Go-Giver, he's one of my favorite. I did a great podcast with him. He's one of my all-time favorites. And I really think that there's so many great books out there. I know Gary Keller's book, The One Thing, is fantastic. It kind of helps you hone in and focus. I have a whole library full of books. I would say that those are really my top probably 5 books out there. Love all of those books, and there's a million of them. But those are my all-time favorite books.
Awesome. Love it, love it, love it. So, with that being said, that this podcast, just like your podcast, is really created to go out there and inspire people to go out there and live an epic life. I think it's so sad. I see so many people just living and really living and dying amongst mediocrity, and it's a choice, right? They can go out there and create these amazing lives if they choose to. So, the podcasts are created to go out there and give them tactical, but also inspirational, that motivation that they need to go out there and create the life that they know they want and deserve. So with that being said, do you have any last maybe words of inspiration and encouragement they'd like to leave our listeners with, so that hopefully they can go out there and take action and create an amazing life like you've been able to create for yourself?
I would say that to me, the best thing that anyone can do is to dream big, right? Is to dream, what does your life look like, right? The more that we can visualize what we want our life to look like I never in my wildest dreams ever imagined my life would be where it was, or where it is right now. But I would say that probably the most valuable lesson that I've learned is that the magic is in the moment. The magic happens right here, right now. You're focused on what is going on right in front of you. And we have a tendency many times to spend way more time up in our head, and there ain't nothing good going on up there, nothing good. So we're spending a bunch of time up in our head. That's where things are happening, where we're talking negatively to ourselves. We're, comparing ourselves to others. We're doing all this other stuff. And so if you could take the time to really stay right here, right now, focus in the moment on what's going on around you, but you can always have that possibility of dreaming big. What do you really want your life to look like? It doesn't have to be where it is. And you have the power to change it in an instant. Whenever you want, you can change it. And I think people say, oh yeah, well, that's easy for someone like you to say, but I have to say that to myself all the time too. I'm no different. I'm no different from you. I'm no different from anyone else. I get up, I put my pants on, I go to work, I do the work. The difference maybe for where we're at in our lives, where someone else is that we were willing to do the work. So are you willing to do the work? People have big dreams, but they're not willing to do the work that it takes. They're not really willing to put in that effort and do every single day what it takes. They'll do it for an hour or two. Like right now, it's the perfect time of year, right? Everyone's like, yeah, I'm going to eat healthy today. I'm going to the gym today. I'm making all my calls today. Yep. And that lasts until it's about 4:00 right now. So,
yeah, like Wednesday and it's done.
So, that's the reality is, they're willing to do it for a short period of time, but how you build a lifetime business is by doing it every day, day in and day out, for week in, week out, month in, month out, year after year after year. That's where really this level and version of success really comes about.
Yep, no, I love it. Very powerful words, and I couldn't agree more. The one magic pill that exists is consistency. It's the only magic pill, right? So,
yeah.
To our listener base, I know we end every single podcast with this, you guys, but information without implementation is the start of delusion. Information's not power. It's taking that information, taking massive action on that, implementing, which will then create power in your world. So, take some amazing nuggets that Marguerite shared with you guys today. She sold over 3,000 homes, which is an absurd amount of homes in a career to go out there and do. So, take some of the great knowledge she shared with you today, go implement, take action, and go out there and create that life that you want and deserve. And Marguerite, this has been an absolute honor, absolute pleasure having you on the show. Truly appreciate you taking time in your busy day to be here. It truly means a lot.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm honored as well. I love I told you when we did our podcast, I love your get shit done. Yeah. I love that. That's it. Thank you so much. Such an honor.
You're very welcome. All right. Thanks, you guys. Talk to you next time.